Okay, we'll call this meeting of the August 19th, 2021 Board of Governors meeting to order. I'd like to have a motion to approve the June 23rd, 2021 Board of Governors meeting minutes.
So moved.
A second.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion approved. We need a motion to ratify the board poll from July 19th of 2021.
Make the motion.
Motion made, second.
Second.
Second made. All in favor, say aye.
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 Motion passed. At this time, we're going to have the reports of the vice presidents. Dr. Mark Manzanero, the academic affairs.
Good afternoon, everyone. Great to be here. I think today marks my second month here, or I've been here for 2 months, and it's been a busy time, and it's been deeply gratifying, and we're within a week of hitting the ground running, and students are going to be returning, and that'll be another new thing for me. So I want to report on academic affairs since the last board meeting. I really want to touch on some of our highlights in the academic arena. And then I want to move to, pass the baton over to Dr. Elise Hepworth, who's going to give you a presentation on our new Master Academic Plan. So some highlights. So Missouri Western, as I think you know, received approval for the Master of Arts in Teaching program from the Missouri Department of Higher Education and Workforce Development in June of 21. And since that time, the interim graduate dean, Susan Bashinsky, has received at least 28 different inquiries for this brand new program. And, we are expecting a significant number of new students beyond that. And of course, in the coming few years. We're very excited. On July 28th, the Provost office conducted an all-day joint chairs meeting, which included all department chairs, deans, the Provost office. The meeting focused on the support and mentoring of our department chairs, some of whom are very new, some of whom are more seasoned. We really put an emphasis upon enhanced communication between faculty and chairs and deans and provost to the cabinet and the president, with a real emphasis upon collaboration. I invited, and I was very grateful to have presentations by cabinet members at that meeting on topics such as finance, enrollment management, and legal issues. And the sessions, the all-day sessions, were both very informational and very informative. I plan on having these meetings. We're initiating these meetings on a quarterly basis. Formerly, it was one meeting a year, and we're going to be having another one in October. We'll really be focusing on several major issues, including things like course enrollment and management of personnel issues and other things. Deans Crystal Harris and Susan Bashinsky are working with health professions and members of our social work department to create a new master's in social work, an MSW program. A majority of our undergraduate students go on for a master's in social work. And our research indicates that if we had a program, they would stay and do that program with us. So we're moving forward with the planning of such a program. This is a high demand field, applied learning, of course. And we think that we can move forward with real vigor and rapidly. We're learning, as many colleges and universities are, that we need to move fast when we see there's a market demand and develop programs within an academic year, if at all possible. Our program in social work's nationally accredited. And so which is a very good thing. And so we also need to go through the process of getting approval for the master's degree through our accrediting agency. The Master Academic Plan which Dr. Hepworth is going to be presenting on, is essentially fundamentally the strategic plan for academic affairs. We completed it this summer. I'm very grateful to Dr. Hepworth and the other members of that committee who worked through last academic year to see this to completion. It really is focusing on getting us to become the premier open access regional university, as stated as an aim in the 2018-2022 University Strategic Plan. I was very grateful. I gave a brief presentation of this at the Academic and Student Engagement Committee of the board on Monday, and I was very grateful for that discussion, most certainly. The master operational plan is the complement to that academic plan, and it really lays out in details how we plan to implement that plan with a number of tasks that we need to complete over the course of a 5-year, 5-year duration, and we intend on beginning on that immediately, and we will have the initial report of determined objectives and outcomes by July 1 of 2022. We also have been working hard on the academic program review process. The academic program review guidance document led by Committee Chair Dr. Elizabeth Potts received administrative approval this July. Now, the academic program review is something that this institution has not done on a programmatic basis. This means that every academic program in rotation will be reviewed using this document and these criteria every 5 years. The purpose of this is really to ensure that we are regularly assessing the quality of our programs and experiences, and they are aligned with regional needs, with our strategic priorities, that they are financially sustainable, and really responding to our mission as an applied learning institution. And again, that will begin this year. We're assembling the committee for that right now. The Griffin Office of Applied Learning, or GOAL, was launched July 1st by new director Michael Ducey from chemistry. That office is going to lead efforts to create experiences for our students to engage in applied learning activities, to track those opportunities, and to work with and to develop external relationships to foster those activities. The Early College Academy, which is our university's dual credit program, offers college level coursework to approximately 1,200 area high school students. Dr. Hepworth and others have been working on a number of new initiatives to that program. We are very excited about the possibilities. We are going to be offering career exploration certificates in the areas of education, behavioral health, health and wellness, and leadership. This is not only a great opportunity for us to interact with high school students and for them to be on an early track towards college, but we believe it's a good recruitment tool for Missouri Western. We also are working hard this summer on monitoring our course enrollments. Our office created a course enrollment management guideline document, which advises deans and chairs on addressing how to balance the size of our courses and the numbers of our courses to ensure that our courses are fully enrolled, are not under-enrolled or over-enrolled, and also to help guide chairs, especially in determining the appropriate rotation of courses through the course of a few years. We need to ensure that our students have the courses that, of course, enable them to graduate with their major in a timely manner. We also need to make sure that we are not offering courses in such a way that they are, say, under-enrolled, or that we don't want to be surprised in one way or another that we suddenly have to open up new sections or close sections. We've been working quite hard. I'm very grateful to the deans and chairs. We've really been taking that to a granular level in that analysis, for the coming fall semester and throughout the next academic years. And finally, in terms of highlights, our office has really welcomes Dr. Luana Haggard, who is our newly hired Director of Assessment and Accreditation. Dr. Haggart joins the Academic Affairs team with a wealth of experience in accreditation and assessment, with a lot of experience in both post-secondary and K through 12 education. She is going to be a valuable asset and a resource to the campus community. There is a wealth of information in the board book on other highlights and updates from each of the colleges and schools, from business and professional studies, from liberal arts, science, and health professions, and from our graduate school. So I would invite you to take a further look. I'm going to hand this over to Dr. Hepworth, who's going to present on our master academic plan, but I'm certainly open to any questions you may have.
I have a question. I thought we had a master's of social work on campus. I don't know that it was our program, but I have two friends that told me they were running that out here.
Okay, so
So
that
I
would
don't
have
know.
certainly been well before my
Yeah,
time. I don't know if someone with a greater institutional memory could
Well,
recall
I
that.
mean, I think it's a great.
We
thing.
might have
I
had an
thought we
agreement
already
with
had
another
it.
institution.
Yeah, that's
on
what I think we had,
Yeah.
but then we had a person on campus running that
I see.
program. I mean,
We're
someone
excited.
reach out to those people because they might have some good connections to grow the program.
I was gratified that the dean came to me and said, "Yeah, and here's why." You know, in past years, a lot of colleges and universities, faculty might propose a program, and we'd say, well, that sounds like a good idea. Let's run with it. Now, we have to be much more data-driven
Yes.
in terms of looking at the appeal of these programs today. Those appeals shift the regional competition, the cost, et cetera.
I've got a question. What do you think the timeline for the approval of this Masters of Social Work will take?
The time span for the,
Yes, for the approval.
like for the Masters of Social Work,
Mhm.
we're hoping that we can begin that we can get approval and actually get that program operating in 2022.
Oh, well, good.
And it's good when you have motivated faculty and deans who are really pushing for it, right?
Any other questions for
Well,
Dr.
My,
Manzanero?
my question is what kind of look-in are you doing as far as the sustainability of these programs? How many students do you need to enroll to, what kind of modeling are you all doing with regards to that? Because you've got to have a break-even point or even greater than that. You're looking for greater than that, I would hope.
Well, that's what that whole academic program review process and set of guidelines is all about. There's obviously no one single factor we look at in terms of the sustainability of a program. We certainly look at if the program has a major, we look at the number of majors. Whether the program has a major or not, we look at the number of credits that are achieved in that program to fit, say, general education requirements and other requirements. We look at student-teacher ratio in that program. We will also benchmark it against, competitive institutions in that field. So there are many criteria that go into determining success, but that academic program review process is assessing, the effectiveness and efficiency of programs, but it's also looking how we can better support them. What are our best ways of support them? Questions? Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Manganero. Good afternoon, colleagues, distinguished guests, members of the board, and President Kennedy. My name is Elise Hepworth. I am currently serving as the Interim Vice Provost for the Office of Academic Affairs, Dr. Manganero mentioned. And I was tasked at the beginning of the 2020-2021 academic year with leading the Master Academic Plan team. So in this presentation, I'll give you a little bit of the history, the process, and the product, and then our future plans for this. So the function and the purpose of the Master Academic Plan is essentially a strategic plan for academic affairs, as Dr. Manganaro mentioned. It really moves the university forward in a collective and a whole comprehensive manner. This isn't just affecting academics or the Office of Academic Affairs. It's really designed to embody and embrace the entire institution as a whole. So there are many different units that are affected and engaged in this plan that we will be sharing with you intermittently through the next academic year, and then in a summative report in the summer of 2022 on our efficacy. It engages all of our employees to take a hard look at the future of our institution. And it definitely communicates externally the direction of Missouri Western to everyone who are stakeholders in that effort. Our team was consisted of variety of academics across the institution. Jordan Atkinson, assistant professor from communications, Kelly Henry, professor of psychology, Dr. Joel Heyer, administrator, dean of liberal arts, Yip Keequak, assistant professor of computer science, and Kipton Smiley, associate professor of education, and Kristen Walton, professor of biology. We were charged by Provost Davenport in August of 2020 with the task of looking into how we were going to strategically plan over the next 5 years. And in light of the previous year's retrenchment, we thought that it would be pertinent and necessary to plan the future. It was also a way to give a message internally to our faculty and staff. Who are we and where we are headed over the next few years? We began those meetings in 2020 after the team was formed, and we met weekly for 6 months, several hours per week. We engaged in over 50 hours of conversations with area units, departments, staff, and students to gather input and feedback and administrative leadership. Toward the end of this process, we believed that the plan should happen with people and not to people if we were able to build that kind of belongingness and accountability that we hope people will embrace as a result of this plan. And we asked for many different times documented feedback in a collaborative effort for this, again, to be moving with us and with the community and not to the community. So I'll draw your attention to the folder in front of you, the bold folder. These are 2 documents that were developed with the help of Kent Heyer and Kendi Scudder in marketing, for which I am very grateful. Thank you to you both. One is a bifold with the executive summary, and one is a single-sided document that we will be able to share externally with partners. The Master Academic Plan has 4 elements, like 4 legs to a chair, a very sturdy chair. Without one, it would not quite work. The applied learning was our main focus because in 2005, we were designated the Applied Learning Institution for the state of Missouri. And this really embodies those real world learning experiences with the very lofty goal of 100% of graduates participating in at least one guided learning, applied learning experience related to workforce readiness during their career at Missouri Western. I think this is also going to drive our market identity and our messaging that we're planning on using this message to share with the community exactly what applied learning is and how does Missouri Western do it better than any other institution in the state. The second, of course, as a Master Academic Plan, we must address innovative curriculum. And this involves that adaptive and adapting coursework for a changing world. So the academic program review is a very important piece in that and is outlined in the Master Academic Plan, that we are going to be constantly evaluating and assessing not just the health of the programs and the sustainability of the programs, but the innovation in the programs and the efficacy of those programs in response to workforce needs in our region. Essential skills acquisition, or some may know is soft skills, is a intentional development of professional skills all the way down in our general studies courses. It is also important to note that applied learning and essential skills acquisition should be happening in all coursework and not just the upper level coursework in those majors that students are focusing. The community and belongingness piece is one of my favorite and most near and dear, because I think that if a student can identify and see themselves in their institution, then it greatly increases the likelihood of their continued persistence and eventual completion of their degree. And this is a network of student support. So everything is going to be intentional. I had mentioned in earlier visits with the cabinet and other constituencies that it should not be the role of enrollment management and admissions to be recruiting students. It should not be the dean of students' sole responsibility to be assisting students. It's all of our responsibility, and every employee is an educator, as was mentioned in the strategic plan of the 2018 to 2022. And this really drives home that message that we are looking for persistence, a sense of belongingness in community all the way down to the course level. And this is going to then drive with Mike Ducey, giving credit to Dr. Mike Ducey, who is the director of the Griffin Office of Applied Learning. Our tagline is Griffin's work, Griffin's serve, Griffin's discover, and Griffin's create. So our next steps, as Dr. Manganaro previously mentioned, we have created a master operational plan, which is disseminated by year, by a responsible party and stakeholders, and by area. The operational plan, we will be launching that at the start of the academic year. So we'll be meeting with all of the leaders in those various areas to determine the outcomes, determine the timeline. We have a timeline established, but the agreement upon that timeline, and then what kind of data will they be producing in our annual checkups and annual assessment reports. The next piece is the launching of our website, sharing the information about the Master Academic Plan. And Kevin, would you mind clicking on that hyperlink? And with the help of our new webmaster, Jack Pinella, he has helped us put together a shell site that is not quite ready for the public yet, but this is going to give you a really good idea of how that will be outward facing to our community. So much of what you see in front of you today is just digitally available on our website. And so again, consistency of message, frequency of message is vitally important. Thanks, Kevin. Would you mind going back to the slide? And then finally, and I mentioned this previously, that we are going to be reporting this annually and reporting to you the plan's efficacy and how we might adjust the plan as we move forward. We really feel that this is an important piece of action that we need to carefully nurture and supervise and evaluate as we move through the next 5 years. We might find that we've met our goals and we would like to create additional goals to achieve, or we might adjust goals as needed. So this is part of that process. So at this time, I would like to entertain any questions that you might have for me regarding this Master Academic Plan or our next steps.
Question.
Yes, ma'am.
In the book, our board book, it talks about kind of the overarching goal of the university is to be the premier open access regional university. I'm not for sure that I know what premier means, but that's a long subjective conversation. But how do you see the open access, or how do you see that whole statement, I guess, playing into this? I mean, is there in the plan detailed, is there a connection between how applied learning allows us to be the premier open access regional university, essential skills, and then is there measurements that ties that all back together? Because I think that's a really important question for sustainability of the university and also the perception, not only internal, but external. You know, exactly what is it that we're trying to accomplish and how does all this effort make that happen?
Right, that's a
Or how
really
does
good
it
question.
impact it, whichever way. I struggled with this for probably 2 hours the night that we got this. So which one wins, right? The 4 circles or premier open access regional university, or how do you intertwine them?
Sure. So the Premier Open Access University is a statement from the 2018, 2022 strategic plan. And this is a way that really dovetails into that plan and complements it. So having a very difficult manner of which to qualify or quantify what makes us premier open access regional university. Each one of these global initiatives directly speaks to the kind of students that we serve. The students that are really, we serve a 10-county region in Missouri, surrounding area, but it really speaks to their specific needs, and that what we've been able to determine from their successful completion rate, their retention rates, all of that data was taken into account whenever we were developing these global initiatives. I can tell you that the master operational plan does outline some of those. It doesn't speak directly to how we are going to achieve that open access university, but it does delineate all of the tasks and the outcomes that are going to be expected from each one of these global initiatives. So it is has been explored, and we will continue to explore it. So that's our ultimate wish and our goal and our outcome. And we feel like, looking down at a granular level, the things that our students need that will ensure their success, because of course we want all students to succeed, but how do we get there? These are going to be the fundamental building blocks to which how we can be the premier open access. I know that was kind of an answer, non-answer, but
Answer. I mean, I think the challenge is open access isn't optional, right? I mean,
Yeah,
that's who we
absolutely.
are. So
Mhm.
we have to accept that, embrace it, whatever. Premier, we have options,
Mhm.
right? We can define that, how we want to define that, as long as we define it. And if those are the 4 things that we're using to define it, which is, I think, what I heard you just say, I think that's great. I'm very proud of you guys for figuring it out, because it's been one of my frustrations here. But now we got to hold ourselves accountable to that, right? So like, how are we going to make sure that applied learning allows us to be premier, accepting the fact that we're open access? And we got to stay true to it every day.
Absolutely. And a lot of those things are more correlation than causation, but we think that these causes here are going to positively impact our students' ability to successfully complete. If we're going to say we're going to be the best, then we better be the best. I mean, we better be the best at teaching and serving and identifying students who are at high risk. We need to be the best. And I'm really proud of this team. I think that's why we spoke particularly to the community and belongingness piece, because you can do all of these efforts in retaining, but if a student doesn't feel connected, and if they don't feel like that you really care for them deeply, that they might not have reason to stay. So I think this is going to put us on the right
And
trajectory.
I mean, I really think, I'm a business person, so I apologize if I get too businessy, but like, this is really good holistically in the university, right? Because I was a faculty here. Nobody ever cared if I felt like I belonged around. So, I mean, that's important, I think. Yeah. You can't make students feel like they belong if the people who are teaching them don't feel like they belong. So I think you guys did a great job, in my opinion. I just challenge you to keep yourself true to that word premier, whatever it means. I never saw a definition exactly of it. And I would also encourage you to keep the team together, because this is the fun part, right? Now the hard part, where you have to hold yourself accountable. Who better to do the follow-up than the team that created it?
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you. Yeah, Dr. Manganaro.
I might mention too that, aside from Darrell, but the Griffin Office of Applied Learning is an office that's specifically dedicated to this, organizing those efforts, articulating and re-articulating what applied learning is all about, encouraging new applied learning programs and experiences and tracking them.
Yeah.
And that office is going to be, the whole purpose of that office is to drive that towards success.
Yeah, and I mean, it's probably not the right time for my opinion, but from my own experiences, if you don't have someone that owns every one of these circles,
Exactly.
Yes, so we
you're,
have that
you can
very,
pray a lot, but that's about the.
we
one
have
thing
that very
can help.
clearly lined out in the master operational plan. We will be
That's really
reporting
good.
on that regularly, yes. But the centralized efforts for applied learning in terms of consistency of delivery, closing the loop and evaluative processes, that's all going to be Dr. Ducey, and he's done a fantastic job this far launching that office with only in 6 weeks.
Yeah,
So his efforts have been tremendous too.
that's great. Good job, and thank you for all the effort. I know how hard this stuff is. It looks really like it was really simple when you get it like this, but it's not simple to get there.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Any other questions?
Dr. Hepworth, it would appear to me that the evaluation of this program going forward is going to be twofold or parallel entities of the instructors and the students. I realize the instructors' evaluations or comments will be readily accessible. At what point do you feel you can get the assessment from the students about whether it's as successful as we want it to be or not? Is that midterm, end of semester, end of year?
I think it's housed in many different areas and many different facets along. We're not going to just take one formative and one summative assessment. We'll be assessing as we go along. There's the national survey for student engagement that we have used. The last, I believe, time that was utilized was 2018, and that really measures that piece of belongingness and a sense of community and their ability to feel like that they're being supported in classes, that they feel like there's classroom assimilation, that they feel guided in those classes. That is a national survey, but we're also creating our internal assessment processes during that, which is outlined in the master operational plan. And it will be continuously monitored and reported annually.
Okay, that leads to another question.
Sure.
For the students to fill out the questionnaires or the evaluation, how do you motivate most of the students to do that? I know that seems to have been a problem in some other areas. Students just didn't initiate that effort.
There's a lot of research about how to engage students into participating in those surveys. Over the last year, we've been utilizing a chat bot. EdSites is a way of communicating directly to students' cell phones. That's been very effective in terms of student response rate. I think that has been high. We'll be really able to gauge, comparative data once we have another year of that. Also working in collaboration with partners across campus, with the Dean of Students, with even the instructors. We find that if you are able to offer a little bit of time during a class for a student to take a survey, a course evaluation, something of this effect, that they will be able to do that, especially on their mobile devices. You have to be very intentional. You can't just send it out and say, hey, do this, because that doesn't usually get a very good return rate. We're looking at a lot of those different, because that is a concern. Yeah, the response rate is very difficult. And of course, exit graduation surveys that are taken that we ask students to partake in as well.
Thank you. Any other questions for Dr. Hepworth? Thank you. It's a great report.
Yeah, thank you.
Now we'll have a report on the student affairs and enrollment management by Dr. Melissa Mace.
Good afternoon, Chairman Ebersold, President Kennedy, Governors, Cabinet, and Griffin community. Thank you for the opportunity to present the work of the Division of Student Affairs and Enrollment Management. This summer was surely a time of transition for the division. Creating the new combined division makes a great deal of sense as there is much overlap with retention efforts. We have successfully filled the majority of our open positions, and I am incredibly pleased to announce here today that Dr. Brett Bruner will join us as the new Assistant Vice President and Dean of Students beginning the first day of the new semester. Dr. Bruner has a wealth of experience and will be a great asset to the university. Go. With our team now nearly complete, we are off to a good start for the semester. Josh Maples, Director of Housing and Residential Life, began training the new resident assistants yesterday and making plans for residential life programming. While summer residents, athletes, band, and Griffin Edge members have already begun moving into their fall halls, we will welcome new residential students on Wednesday, August 25th, and continuing residential students will move in the weekend prior to the start of the semester. Speaking of our new freshman students, Griffin Edge begins on Thursday, the 26th. Melissa Stahlbaumer, Assistant Director of Admissions for New Student Success, has planned a full complement of programming activities that takes students through Sunday evenings, new student convocation, complete with the fireworks. Other highlights for Griffin Edge include Grip Up Downtown, color team competition, and motivational speaker Daryl Bellarmy. He will be talking with students on the topic of being fearless. I would like to publicly thank her for the tremendous job she has done on orientation throughout the summer and the work she's doing with Griffin Edge. Griffin Edge is also where we will officially launch Griffin 360, a wellness program designed by Emily Ludwig, the Director of Recreational Services. I want to note that Recreational Services is aligned with athletics, and I want to thank Dr. Looney for the great work his team has done on this amazing project. The first day of the semester is August 30th, the day on which we will hold Western warm-up. Student organizations and community businesses set up tables in the Kelly Commons area outside of Bloom to let students know of all their options for getting involved on campus, as well as everything our great city has to offer. Student Development Director Joshua Clary joined our team just this week and has hit the ground running, getting everything ready for this event. I have tasked our new Diversity and Inclusion Director, George Hudson, with reimagining how we will engage our non-traditional and commuter students to make sure they are also taking advantage of all Missouri Western has to offer. George has also began his duties on Monday, and I look forward to sharing with you his great work at our next Board of Governors meeting. The Career Development Center, under the direction of Megan Rainey, is also making plans for a full and active semester, starting with a part-time employment fair in which students will be able to talk with potential employers from Missouri Western offices as well as the community. There's been a lot of work done this summer, much of it behind the scenes, and I would like to just take one moment to thank every member of this campus community for their hard work. I would like to highlight the Counseling Center today. In my verbal report, Mr. Stephen Potter will be retiring after 23 years of service as a counselor and interim director of the Counseling Center. He retires at the end of this month, and I would like to thank Steve for his awe-inspiring dedication to our university. Steve, you will be missed. On September 1, Katie Jeffers will step in as the new Counseling Center Director. Katie has been with the university for 3 years, first as a practicum student and then as a counselor. She is a licensed professional counselor, and we are thrilled that she will be filling the role of director. One new partnership that will begin under Katie's tenure as director is a partnership with the Family Guidance Center. This partnership will allow for the placement of a full-time counselor for their center, from their center to be located in our counseling center to serve our students. This is a much-needed resource, and we are quite pleased to develop this relationship. I do want to recognize Dr. Gregory Lindstedt for bringing this opportunity to our attention and making the introductions. Katie has also been very involved with Partners in Prevention, a consortium of Missouri's higher education institutions focused on creating healthy and safe campuses. Missouri Western receives a $10,000 grant each year to focus on mental health, alcohol and drug misuse, and interpersonal violence. Katie will be working collaboratively across campus to lead the charge on how these funds are used to improve the well-being of our students. Another benefit of this partnership is the ability to participate in the Missouri Assessment of College Health Behaviors study. This study is conducted annually by Partners in Prevention on partnering campuses. There are 24 partnering campuses in the state of Missouri. The study consisted, the last study done, which was in the spring of this past semester, consisted of a quantitative survey and was completed by 542 Missouri Western students and 10,142 students across the state. This is a comprehensive study and is considered statistically significant. I would like to highlight just a few of the findings. 20% of our students do not have insurance. 41% felt stressed out, and 35% indicated being overwhelmed. 22% indicated that they very often, always, or always plus experience food security issues. Students' first source of comfort is their peers. So very surprising, 67% find they have supporting and rewarding social relationships. However, 41% of our students have struggled with major depression over the previous year, and 27% have considered transferring or stopping out. And we have subpopulations of students on campus who are experiencing a low sense of belonging and isolation. I will be tasking every department in my areas to consider the full report, and programming must be done to help our students. It cannot and does not fall on one department or area, but we must all realize the challenges our student Griffins face. And this is why our Master Academic Plan and our Master Operational Plan are so incredibly important. I would like to transition now to recruitment of new students. On August 24th, we will hold an all-day walk-in registration for any student who is not registered for fall classes and would like to. Jamie Swagger, Assistant Director of Admissions for Operations, and Tracy Sharp, Assistant Registrar, have done an excellent job planning this event, along with committee members. And Megan Berberich, Communications Coordinator in the Office of Admissions, has done a tremendous job working collaboratively with others to get the word out about walk-in registration. I truly hope you have seen our yard signs, our billboard, heard our radio ads, seen our newspaper ads, and probably about 10 other things I can't remember off the top of my head that we have done to get the word out about walk-in registration next week. We held 10 Griffin orientation events over the summer with 606 new students in attendance. The recruiters, under the direction of recruitment manager Peggy Payne, gave us 125% all summer, reaching out to prospective students, setting up booths at several events throughout the summer, being absolutely everywhere we ask them to be. While we don't yet know how close we will get to our goals, the entire admissions team did everything I asked them to do. I pushed them all very hard, and they embraced the challenge with perseverance and grace. I do want to highlight a few bright data points for you. We saw increases in new freshmen in Buchanan County, an 11% increase, Jackson County, 6% increase, DeKalb, 21% increase, and Clinton, a 60% increase. Areas of work for us next year include Clay County and Platte County. Looking at St. Joseph High School specifically, we were up in new students from Central and Lafayette. Another bright spot in the recruitment cycle is that we are experiencing growth in our transfer student populations with an overall growth of 9.13%. We launched the application for 2022 on time and without any major issues. I have kept you updated throughout the slate implementation process, and we are now going to reap the rewards of that long process with comparison data that will allow us to know where we are at all times. So let's take a look at this first slide at the trends we are seeing for spring and fall 2022. On this slide, the blue line represents 2022, and the gold line is the comparison data from 2021. This particular slide is for completed applications. So we opened the application the beginning of July, and this is for students who began filling out the application and hit the submit button. This slide depicts year-over-year point-in-time growth at 180%. Spring 2022 applications incomplete. Again, the blue line represents 2022. The gold line represents 2021. Here on this slide, we see a point-in-time year-over-year growth of 1,300%. I checked the numbers this morning, and today we're at 1,500%. Let's look at fall 2022 applications, because that is where the majority of our students will come in. Here we see year-over-year point-in-time growth of 23%, 23.4% for completed applications. And for incomplete applications, which means they have started the application, but they have not yet finished the application, we see a growth of 52% for point in time year-over-year. Now let me go back to this previous slide, the completed. I discussed here that we're actually 28%, not 23%. We're 28% up over this point in time last year. If I were to calculate our yield based on this information alone, we would enroll 750 new freshman students for fall 2022. And while it would be irresponsible to make predictions based on such early data, I can say that I am very pleased. To borrow a sports metaphor from my friend and colleague, Josh Looney, we came out of the starting blocks clean and fast, and this race looks good today. And with that, I will entertain questions.
Dr. Mace, while I applaud all efforts to try and beat all the bushes for prospective students, you were kind of stressing the walk-in registration that's upcoming. Do we have reason to believe that there's substantial students out there who are unenrolled for a semester that's starting in
We do.
now?
We do. What I did not talk about is a lot of the efforts we're doing with continuing students. Just today, I'll give you a kind of just an analogy of what happened today. We texted all of our students who came to orientation but didn't register for orientation. And one young lady called us immediately, said, I thought I was registered. I'm registered. But she did not go to her advising appointment, therefore she was not registered for classes. And so we're working right now to get her registered for classes. Last year's walk-in registration, I believe there were about 75 students who came in for walk-in registration last year. I anticipate that we will exceed that number based on everything that we have done to get the word out about walk-in registration. I look forward to seeing how the day goes. Our faculty are standing by on that day, ready to help students who are continuing students who have not yet registered. We're doing quite a bit still in these last 2 weeks to get prospective and continuing students in the door. And it has been a collaborative effort to make all of this happen.
Maybe just from a personal standpoint or how things are received, there's a lot of good information there.
Mhm.
I'd be a bit hesitant to lead with percentages this early. I mean, it's impressive. On one of the charts that went from a single digit to 40, so an increase year over year of 30 is great. Calling it 1,300% increase when we're talking a number of 40,
Yes.
kind of I go too far, but we're going to use lines. That's Mark Twain had a line about, statistics and what those might also infer.
Right. And I completely
sometimes.
agree with you, which is why I said it would be irresponsible to really make any plans based on data this early. It's just a year over year point in time on where we're standing right now.
And my intent wasn't to be critical of that. I think you should celebrate that there is a increase of 35 or whatever
Yes.
at this early stage.
Yes.
I think that is a real number, is a number that I feel good about what your department's doing, things that we've tasked you with, and you are running and making real progress, with that. And I just don't want it to get lost
Right.
on maybe some, hyperbole with that.
I sincerely appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Governor Landis.
When we had our Board of Governors meeting on personnel and finance and operations, and we're going to talk about that later. But at the end of the day, when we come in here, the question I have is, when will we actually know those numbers from today? How many we got, who we got, and what? Because we can talk about how our finances are and everything else, but the most key element is what are we doing as far as getting students and keeping them? So at what point in time are those numbers going to come real? Because I know it takes time until you
Sure.
can do it.
Sure. Well, if we were to think about where we are now and the actual numbers, we could consider the add drop date, the last date to add or drop a class. Typically, we
And that's
look,
when.
and that is the first Friday of the semester. So that
Okay.
is September 3rd.
Okay.
But as most institutions, the official count is census, which is 30 days after the start
Okay.
of the semester. And that is when those are the numbers that are the numbers we set in stone.
Okay.
Any other questions for Dr. Mace? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And now we're going to have the report of the athletics by Dr. Josh Looney, which should be a very good report, being this is his last report to the group here. So go get him, Tiger.
Mhm. He's not a tiger, he's a griffin.
He's a lion,
Okay.
going to be a lion.
Still a Griffin today and for another week and a couple days. And, just want to express my appreciation for everyone on this board, in this room, and colleagues. And athletics is a funny piece, but I think everybody would tell you, whether it's any success or that you have, whether you're a coach, an athlete, or administrator, it's because of the people around you. And certainly that's definitely the case here at Missouri Western. And I remember about just over 3 years ago, I was excited in this board reporting that we had just hired an incredible senior woman administrator and associate athletic director, and got her. She was an athletic director at Baker University, and Teresa Grossbach, and she was one of the first major hires that we had when I got here. And since she's been named interim AD here, just excited for that, and I know she'll do a great job. But definitely one of the key people and part of a lot of the great things we've been trumpeting off the field. We wouldn't get there without her. I'll start off with some COVID pieces with athletics. I know you'll hear some of this with President Kennedy and Dr. Harris. I just say from an athletics perspective, it's still a factor. It will be a factor this fall. And where the factor will really be on vaccination rates. And so we've taken the approach with our student athletes to provide the black and white scenario of in the NCAA, how unvaccinated athletes are handled and how vaccinated athletes are handled. And it's pretty simple. Vaccinated athletes are not subject to quarantine. They're not subject to any testing unless they're symptomatic, and we're testing there. Unvaccinated athletes are subject to any quarantine of close contact. They're subject to any symptomatic testing or other testing that we put in place. And the pauses this season, while I'd love to tell you we're still on our streak of no positive cases in athletics since last February, we held that streak through July. August wasn't as kind. It's not going to be the positive cases that postpone games. It's going to be the unvaccinated quarantine pieces that do that and trigger. I'll go back to football last year. We canceled a football game, not because we had many cases. We had 3 positives, but they were all on the offensive line. And with quarantines and living together, we couldn't field an offensive line to play a game. Those are the things that will happen. So on early data from our student athletes and our football team in particular, the vaccination rates are not great. I would say they're not good. But once the student athletes have come back and understand the difference of how it's treated, we're seeing those go up. So our football team, for instance, on August 7th, when they reported of the 120 some athletes, we had 26 that were fully vaccinated. Since that date, we're up to 72 that are now fully vaccinated or have started that process. And I think the impact of playing is the largest motivator for student athletes who have been on the fence or just really haven't been tracking because they haven't been competitive. So we'll continue to preach that with each team as they report. And obviously that's what we're tracking on the most right now is where we are on vaccination rates. But ultimately that it will be a factor across the college sports landscape this year. And that will be the big thing that either pauses seasons or continues them, allows them to go forward. I'll jump into Chiefs camp as we just saw the trucks pull out yesterday. And it was an interesting year for Chiefs camp, different in very many ways. But I would say from the internal piece, which is what no one sees, but is, I would argue, the most important part of camp, I would say our best ever. And that's, we had no major fires, great plans from our Brian Atkins and our West Campus, Jill Voltmer, and our police. It was an unbelievable camp from the logistics side of ensuring that the Chiefs did not have any interruption to their daily preparation. The external side was very different. We knew it would look different. Was pleased with the overall attendance numbers. We're waiting on this week, but on average, we were at about 2,700 per practice. And so when you pan that out, where does that come through? It was miles away from 2019, which was our record year, but it beats 2018 and most every year except for the very first year at Chiefs camp, which was 2010. And in the collective bargaining agreement was much different. You had 2 practices a day at that point. You had night practices. So all in all, very pleased. Our revenue in our core areas is going to be higher than 2018, which at that time was one of the best we've ever had. It's not going to touch 2019, but that blew everything throughout out of the water. Why the changes? I think no autographs is a big piece. You're a casual fan and the autograph scram, that's a big piece of training camp. I think you had plenty of diehard fans and people that wanted to see the team, but not being able to interact with players, that's one of the key pieces of training camp that can't be offered anywhere else. We also, with the calendar, and this is no fault of anyone with the Chiefs or Missouri Western, we only had 2 weekend dates this year. Some years we've had 6 weekend dates, depending on how the calendar falls. And both of those weekend dates were on separate weekends. So you might have had a Friday, but then you didn't have the Saturday, and then you had the Sunday. So that travel, hey, I came into town, I got in and watched Friday's practice and stayed for Saturday. That type of fan traffic didn't happen. And then the third, which has actually helped us track a lot better on actual numbers versus estimated numbers in the 10 previous camps, the ticketing process was different. It just was. It mirrored what it would be like to go to a Chiefs game. And there's a lot of positives to that, but the negative would be fans that may have been on the fence or locally, I don't want to deal with that app and go in. Now, there's a QR code right on site. If people did show up, they could get their ticket right there. The Chiefs made it easy. It was a big change. It was a difference. And I do think that took some getting used to, especially in the rollout. But overall, a very successful camp operationally. Revenue, I didn't think we were going to hit 2019. I wasn't sure we'd hit 2018. We're about last check about 150% of 2018. So I think all in all, about as great as we could have expected. We know that we had hosted a lot of great community members and others. And I know this is President Kennedy's first training camp, and saw her there engaging a ton. And I think all in all continues to be a great benefit for the city, the university, and was well worthwhile. And so we're looking forward to 2022 next year to have that full engagement with Chiefs players and autographs to bring those numbers back up to the 2019 range. I have a note in here on our academic honors. Love to share these. We had one final group come in, and this continues our trend. So this is the ADA Academic Achievement Award. That's the Division II Athletic Directors Association. This is a bit of a higher award for student athletes. It's student athletes with a 3.5 GPA or higher through 4 academic semesters. And we've been tracking on that just like we have GPA. The record was set in 2015-16 with 40 student athletes. And just as our GPA has tracked up for each of the last 4 years, so have our totals in this area. So the last 4 years, we went to 45 and set a new record in 17-18, then 66, then 72. And this past year with 96 of our student athletes are now in that area. So it's showing as we've recruited and continue to enhance academic performance of our athletes as they're going through the process and becoming juniors, sophomores, and get through that semester, they are seeing those high GPAs. So another great recognition for our student athletes. In preseason polls, you'll see in your book, women's soccer is ranked number 23 to start the year, and football's national poll came out and they are receiving votes. So both of those sports we are very excited about. On the student rec side of things, Steve Johnston, Emily Ludwig, and Kelly Douglas have done a great job working with the city of St. Joseph to renew the partnership agreement we have with the city. That's on the city council docket for Monday, August 23rd. As you know, the city is a great partner for us in pool operations and community aquatics alongside the St. Joseph School District. So we look forward to extending that partnership that has been going on since 2016. We have hired a new softball coach. We lost Jen Bagley-Trotter at the end of July to take on one heck of an assignment, and she will do wonderful at it. Of the first ever Division III to Division I athletic department transition in the history of college sports, and the University of St. Thomas in Minnesota and in her home state. And so she's taken over that opportunity, and we were able to trade one 600 game winner with another. And so we hired Joe Yegi a few weeks ago. He's on campus. Joe was the associate head coach at DePaul, which were the Big East champions most recently. But prior to that, he was a very successful head coach at Kirkwood Community College in Iowa, and was a primary feeder of athletes into our program. Highly endorsed by Coach Bagley-Trotter. And I think one thing that has been amazing to see, and a testament truly to Joe, is Two of his former athletes who then were Griffins are now on his staff. One of them, Lexi Kennard, graduated, and when Jen left, she accepted a job in Florida at a junior college. And when he got this job, 2 months into her tenure, he talked her into making a U-turn and coming right back. So she'll rejoin our staff here in just a few weeks. And so I know our team, we have high expectations for them, highly competitive young women, and they are excited. Another personnel highlight I'd like to give you in athletics, and some of you may remember, it's not in your book. We had some reorganization in our volleyball program in recent weeks. Our assistant coach, Shay Connor, left to join Washburn, her alma mater. And so Coach Carbon has hired Corey Frederick as her assistant coach. And some of you may say, that name sounds familiar. Well, he was the head coach here when Marion was the assistant and left to be a little more of a full-time father in Kansas City. And those kids have since grown a bit more. So now he's coming back to join Marion as the assistant. There's a lot of people in our department that remember Corey when he was the head coach, very well liked. And so we're excited to have him return to the Griffins, and he was back on campus this week as well. I wanted to note and highlight one individual accolade. You've all met Allie Talkin before. She's unbelievable. She's presented to this group. One of our top volleyball student athletes. She was freshman of the year. She's all MIAA. She's a 4.0 in biology. She is our SAC president, just a tremendous representation of Griffin athletics. And she was named our 18th Griffin in school history to earn first team academic All-American honors throughout all sports. So you'll see Allie, we're blessed to get her back for a COVID year. She's coming to get a second degree before she goes and starts medical school, and will be a big piece of our on-court success. The final pieces to close out is just some fundraising updates. We had a very good year in total in fundraising and athletics, and you can see the last 6 years of where we are. These are donations and commitments that have come into the foundation. These numbers do not include what I would call university revenues, meaning gate revenue, concessions, non-donor related gifts. And you can see we crossed 1.5 million this year, which was critical as with budget challenges to operate, and we stopped really funding some of our wants and utilized a lot of that toward our needs. And so I would say moving forward, the goal for the department really, if in annual fundraising into the foundation, you're around 1.1, that's a pretty good number to feel comfortable with. Anything below that is going to stretch, and above that is a great thing. And then finally, some numbers on our Gold Coat Drive, which is one piece of that annual fund. Got off to a little bit of a slow start when I gave that update in June at your meeting. We've since picked up steam. We're about 86% of our goal. Our goal is $210,000 through the Gold Coat Drive. That would be not quite the record that we set in 2021, but it would be the second highest amount. I don't think we will see the records that we're about 78% off the record, but we should pass where we were in 2019-20, which was just over the 200,000 mark. So we're 86% of that goal, and 78% toward if we were tracking on the record total. We do expect with some outstanding memberships that as the first football game comes in the next few weeks, we will see continue to uptick of those members that have yet to renew. And then the final piece just on community before I open up for questions. St. Joseph School District, we're excited. They announced a couple months ago that they'd be returning their jamborees to campus. And so the football jamboree for the school district will be tomorrow night. It will be a little bit of a new look with only 3 teams, as Bishop Lamond isn't part of that, but always exciting to have high school football on our campus. And so that'll be Friday. And then the volleyball jamboree will be Tuesday of next week with the school district. And it's nice to have those return to campus after a 1-year absence. And that's always a good thing. But with that, I will open up to any questions any of you have with athletics.
Josh, does either the NCAA or the MIAA have, is it sport dependent, or is there a policy for if games don't happen because we don't have enough players or whatever? Are they forfeited, canceled?
Yeah, so Teresa serves on the COVID task force for our league, and that's continuing discussion. The league has not decided to impose forfeits for COVID cancellations. I'll keep my personal opinion outside of that. So it'd be a no contest, which then would trigger in basketball season last year. We had that rule, but we also had a weighted formula to where, let's say you have a football team that goes 6-0 and another football team that plays all of their games and goes 10-1. Technically by standings, that 6-0 team is your conference champion. To me, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So I think there's ongoing discussion. You've seen different leagues across the country. Some are calling them forfeits, Big 12, Pac-12, SEC, ASUN, Big South. And then others are calling them no contest, where I think that there's some discussion. The NCAA is recognizing them as no contest, which would be for the postseason selection. But when it comes to determining your conference champion and others, to me, a weighted formula or a forfeit would make the most sense. And I don't think a forfeit will happen in the MIAA this year. So the administrators continue to look at what a weighted formula might look like, or just roll with not.
Another question, just for, I guess, clarification. When you had the fundraising numbers, does that include in-kind gifts, or is that just?
It does.
Or
Of
how's
that,
that?
of the in-kind, typically that's in our corporate piece. That'd be hotel trade and food trade. The amount there wouldn't be above $150,000 to $200,000. So it's a portion of that, but not a massive amount. And typically we use up all of our in-kind pretty quickly, especially on the food side of things.
Any other questions for Dr. Looney?
I have a question. I know we hosted a vaccination event on our campus on August 12th with a couple of Chiefs members that were there. Is there any plans for future vaccinations as efforts as far as student athletes are concerned? Planning in that regard so that hopefully we don't have to talk about forfeits and things like that.
Sure. I think on the vaccination efforts, I defer to President Kennedy and Dean Harris on any plans for future of that. From a student athlete perspective, we had a bus of 20 some football athletes that went to get vaccinated yesterday. That was a result of continuing education. I think when this hasn't necessarily been staring student athletes in the face with a summer of non-competition, understanding what the differences are and how they'll operate. So I'll just take a football. Football is the easiest one. If you have a positive test on a Wednesday, you're going to be out the next two games. You'll be out the Saturday and the next Saturday. Okay, so there's two games. Then we'll have a return to play protocol, which is usually an EKG, and usually it's about 5 days. You're going to miss 3 games with a positive test. That's a third of your season. They play 11 total.
Right.
And it's like that for other sports as well. Quarantine, same thing. If you're unvaccinated and your roommate tests positive, you can test out by day 7, but you're still missing that next game. And then reality is you've atrophied and you're not in shape anymore. So you're ready to play 2 days? Likely not. And we're likely not clearing you through that. So I think the more that we go through those scenarios are the things that really capture how does this impact me and the season. And of course, if there's any additional vaccination efforts, we'll partner and be good partners with the university. We did see some student athletes attend the partnership with Mosaic. I saw some basketball players and a few football.
Thank you.
Dr. Looney, excuse me, Dr. Looney, we appreciate your report, as we have all of your reports, and we certainly appreciate the amount of elevation you've brought to the program, and sad to see you leave, but we're happy for you and wish you all the luck in the world.
Thank you so much. And we'll continue to follow this place and wish the Griffins well. Appreciate it.
Unless we're playing you, is that right, somewhere? Of course, we were not for Division II, right?
That's right. We'll bring it, touch a check.
Yeah.
Next, we'll have the University Advancement and the Missouri Western Foundation report by Gene Alwesh.
Good afternoon, members of the Board of Governors, Chairperson Eversole, President Kennedy.
My name is Jean Olive, and I am the interim vice president of the foundation. And I have joined you. I joined you 2 months ago, and it's a privilege to be here. Thank you. If we could just take a minute and look back on the past year, I would like to find philanthropy. I want to shout out to Josh and thank you so much for holding the team together and moving it forward. You did a remarkable job. Bill Grimwood, our board chair, held the foundation together. We move forward. We have a vision and plan. Kim Weddle, a shout out to you as well because you really did a remarkable job this year with the Interim campaign. Dr. Kennedy, and then Jen as well, Jen Sherwood in my office and working with the board. A couple of highlights I'd like to point out. Griff Up Downtown will be on August 26th. And this is, we're welcoming our Griffin. And there will be a VIP event in room 108 with not only with our Western League members. The band uniforms. As you know, we're in a campaign for the band uniforms, and I'm happy to announce that we're now at $70,000, which represents roughly almost 90%. And we're closing the gap. We're only $10,000 more to go. And we have a couple of donor asks out there that we're optimistic and positive about that will come to fruition. This year, with COVID, fundraising was tough, but this group pulled it out, and I'm very proud of it. The hardest money to raise is unrestricted money. That's the nemesis in fundraising. It's unrestricted money, and I'm happy to report that the Western League increased by 58% this year, and that first-time donors increased by 208%. Other good news, the foundation assets are now at $60 million. And I'll talk a little more about that, but that was a very exciting announcement at the foundation board meeting last week. New scholarships. We just learned recently that thanks to the Schmidt Family Foundation, we have received, a $50,000 gift for in pass-through funds for scholarships in the marketing area. So many of our scholarship funds are endowed, which means we spend the interest from that. But in this case, it's a pass-through, which means it can be used right away. So congratulations to President Kennedy and Patty Long in my office, who were teamed up with Gary Shorman, president of this foundation, for this exciting grant. Now the fun part. More good news. At the board meeting, as you know, I shared with you that it was announced that we hit a milestone in assets of $16 million. That's very exciting. But board chairperson and chair of the investment committee, Wayne Chad, has challenged the foundation board over the next 5 years to increase that to $100 million. And that's very exciting, because that increases the scholarships and the sustainability of our university. So how will we do that? We will do that through fundraising and through wise investment management. The board has a very comprehensive and strategic investment policy that holds our money managers accountable. And there was a lot of good news. And so the good news is not only our returns, but the good news is the structure that supports it. That's often more essential. I mean, the good returns are great, but it's the structure that supports it, and it's equally as important. Next, at the foundation board, the board of directors approved participating this year in the Day of Giving. I'm just curious, how many folks have heard of Day of Giving? Just raising hands. Okay. It's an international effort that was started in 2012. Universities, colleges, NGOs, hospitals participated, and it's a way to garner support and move advancement forward. We've not yet participated. This is our first year out, and you'll be hearing more about it. And in discussing this last evening with our board chair, Mr. Eversole, he wanted to ask me to reiterate what the foundation board challenge is. And that is that they participate, the foundation board challenges to participate at 100%, and they have challenged you the same. And as often is the case, is it's not the size of the gift, but it's the participation. And so we are very excited about this because we're identifying some strategic priorities as to which we were raising money for. And you'll hear more about that in a later time. Finally, we have been working very hard with the Alumni Association, with the foundation, with university leadership, and now the Board of Governors in terms of integrating and aligning our fundraising program. As I heard Dr. Mesa say earlier, student recruitment and retention, it's everybody's job. Well, philanthropy is everybody's job too. And I'm happy to be a part of it. With that, we are looking to partner more strategically with the Griffin Guarantee. That is a very exciting project for students. We support it, and I don't want to quote numbers because I don't want to get in trouble, but our university supports it at a very large number, and we want to partner, the foundation wants to partner even more with that. So I talked a little bit about the endowments earlier. And endowments are important benchmark in the health of the university. But also there's those monies that are called pass-throughs. So what would that look like? That would look like money for scholarships that we talked about already. That would look like money for equipment. That would look like construction costs. I've met with the president, and the president has, as does the Board of Governors, has a big vision for where we're going. And we look forward to partnering with you on that and to further tighten up that integration and alignment with all, we're interdependent with all of our constituents. And then finally, Governor Teeman, I was really struck last evening by your comments. And we attended a dinner, and his comments were how important it is for us to look at the world and our university from a blue sky perspective. And that's what I'm here to do, help all of us to see those possibilities. And so I was really struck by that. And it really resonated, not only me personally, but as it relates to the university. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
Questions? Well, I thank you for your report. And as you mentioned, we did visit last night about the challenge to the foundation and the same challenge from the foundation to us as board members of the university. So I encourage you to do what you can, that we can get 100% participation. And I know we've all donate to our various causes and contributions and things of that nature, but the foundation's challenge is important to us because of what they have done for the university, and particularly in the last year or two in assisting us. So hopefully we can 100% participate, and thank you again.
Thank you for that.
Next, we'll have a report on the market and communications from Greg Hatton.
I saw Kent Hires name down. I thought you were gonna go. like,
Yeah.
Tag team.
Mhm.
Thank you so much for having me speak. I've been asked to kind of give an update. I've been here for 6 months as your interim marketing idea guy, and take everything I say with a big grain of salt because I'm a consumer products guy, not a higher education institution guy. And so I was a little bit of the outside looking in. If nothing else, I think I probably brought a different perspective. Some things I got really excited about, sometimes drove me crazy. And I want to talk about just real quickly my highlights from 6 months and then leave you with some things to think about. And again, that's where the grain of salt comes from, because a lot of these come from my background. I grew up, most of my career was spent on Hallmark cards. And so I learned pretty much everything I know about branding and marketing down in Kansas City. So again, that's the perspective that I tried to bring to this. I think it was just a great experiment to see if a consumer products guy could spark some different ideas in a higher education setting. So the verdict is out, I guess, on how we did. Let me start with what keeps me up at night from the very beginning was points of differentiation, points of distinction. In consumer products, if you don't have a point of distinction, then you are a commodity. And there's nothing fun about being a commodity, because then it's all a price game. That's all it is. And you never win because you never make profit. You're always treading water. And so from the very beginning, the team was challenged to let's create points of distinction, but to give me time to find some. And there are lots of them. We'll talk about that in a second. But we came up with a lot of crazy ideas right out of the chute. Melissa and I got our teams together at River Bluff. No alcohol was involved, but it was really just a brainstorm about what we could do together as a team with marketing communications, working with admissions. And out of that, I got to tell you, some really cool, clever things came out of it. One, and I've just thrown about 3 or 4 of my favorites. Griffin Grown is kind of a pet project, and that was sparked by, if you go in Hy-Vee, there is a hydroponics section from Maryville, a 4-foot section of produce that you can get from Maryville in our Hy-Vee. It's like that should be Griffin Grown. We should have crops of seasonal produce that we sell in an 8-foot section in Hy-Vee, Price Chopper, and on campus that we grow in a field straight west of here. That section of I-29, we own that. Where the barn is and the silo, that should be row crops. That should be a signboard for anybody coming from Iowa down to a Chiefs game. They'll know something's going on here. And right now it's just fallow field. That's just one of the things. Like, man, we could create a brand here. And I think the business students in the Craig School could have a lot of fun putting that together and creating a profit center. And watch how that whole thing unfold. And that's kind of what I do for a living is launching brands, by the way. So that one really trips my trigger. I love the esports arena that we have. So what happens if we get an old Airstream and use the logos from that center and create an esports arena on wheels? So picture the Missouri Western team in this going to different campuses to compete, or this at a Mustangs game for after game entertainment, or birthday parties, or high school recruitment. If you could create that same atmosphere that we've got going on and put it on wheels, that one gets me pretty excited. I worked with MoDOT because we had the idea of, a lot of times we hear that I-29 is a barrier, to connecting the campus and downtown. And I honestly think that's real. So could you use the bridges as bridges for the university to reach out to downtown? And I thought there's no way in the world that would happen. And actually there is a way in the world, because after several conversations with the Department of Transportation, they are open to that idea. There are other states that do it. Johnson County does it. If you've gone down there, they've got beautiful bridges. So this is a little bit, I use student labor to create a lot of the graphics that you see. So this probably isn't the execution, but it communicates the concept. That is, if you tie one side with the Griffins and then the other side to giving a nod to St. Joe's history with the Oregon Trail, wagon train, Pony Express, there's a number of things you can do with statues and billboards. And it probably you wouldn't want it to be this gaudy. However, the concept is valid, and it could. I mean, we got 3 bridges that we could do something with. Again, that would be a huge statement for Nebraska, Iowa. Anybody traveling I-29, they would know that they're in Griffin country, and that one I get pretty excited about. One of the things that that I'll tell you is the most rewarding part of my time with you was the Griffin notes. If you went to college in a certain era, you'll recognize the Cliff Notes. We gave a nod to those guys, and we created Griff Notes as a way to make sure everybody on campus knows who the marketing team is, how to get a hold of them, and what their roles were. There was a lot of confusion from the very beginning because we kind of blew that area up, no print shop anymore. And so the perception was marketing has kind of lost its way and they're kind of hard to get a hold of and nobody knows who does what or who to contact. So we corrected a lot of that. And I would say Nick was a driving force behind this because we actually heard feedback from faculty that they would help us. They would engage in the fight to get students if they knew how to use social media a little bit better. And so we put together a Cliff Notes version of how do you use social media to teach outside the walls of the classroom? How do you hashtag Missouri Western? Is there a benefit to that? And I'll talk in more detail in just a little bit about that. That was extremely cool. And from our team, we heard a lot of stuff about Big Bad Maryville that comes down and has a fantastic Mustangs evening. And I mean, I heard they knock it out of the park. They bring a school bus of fans down. They bring their entire, orchestra and marching band and blah, blah, blah. I mean, I heard details about Maryville and what they do. And I'm a Bearcat, by the way. Don't hold it against me, but I had kind of fun competing against my own school. So I went to this Bearcat blowout of a night at Mustangs just to see fact from fiction. And it was lame. I got to tell you, they had a tailgate, which consisted of 3 tents and nobody was there. Heidi catered and there were burnt hamburgers and dried up hot dogs. And there were 3 of us that choked them down. And the only thing they had, they didn't have the cheerleaders. They didn't have a pep band. They had a trophy, national trophy, maybe that they paraded around a little bit. That was kind of cool, but they didn't have t-shirts. They did very little. And so the team got together and we said, okay, we have one objective. We are going to blow the Bearcat night out of the water with what we do. And we're going to take back Phil Welch and some of these local things that we kind of left the door open and Maryville came pouring in. Good for them, but let's take them back. And I got to tell you, I'll show you a video here in a second because it was a lot of fun. So those are kind of highlights, a few highlights of the big thing. Here is just bullet points. Working with the marketing team, I had a blast. I was only here a couple days a week, but the marketing team is very good. You've got talented folks there, and I had a ball working with them. And they got tired of my impromptu brainstorms when I would wheel my chair out in the hall, and we would just huddle up. And at first, there was only a couple of us because we had half the team working from home, and by the end, here just the last couple of months, everybody has been in the office and it's been great because we get more minds pouring into ideas and we came up with a lot of cool stuff. Faculty, I have to say that was a highlight and it was a dread for me because we called a meeting of the faculty and we put on a workshop to introduce the Griffin Notes. And I was a little bit nervous because in that time, to reflect back in February, March, we had a lot of disgruntled faculty. We had a lot of lame duck faculty. And they weren't pleased to be asked to engage in anything. And so we kind of walked in there in force. The entire marketing team put on a workshop. It was well attended. We had a lot of Zoom ins, including a Zoom bomb. And I didn't even know what a Zoom bomb was until we got a Zoom bomb. You've ever been Zoom bomb before? Man, what a disruption. Kind of crazy. But what we asked the faculty to do was think outside your classroom and hashtag and use social media to become influencers. Basically, that's what we asked them to do. And they actually did it. We did a workshop on a Thursday and we kind of did high fives amongst the team because during the weekend, the faculty got busy and started re-hashtagging a lot of posts that they had put up. And our brand awareness, you'll have to hold me to this. As a marketing guy, I tend to exaggerate, but we tracked results, which is I'm big on measuring results, and our brand awareness went up like 400% in one weekend. Brand engagement went up 250%, and that's all credit to the faculty. They actually did stuff, and that was rewarding. The Griff Notes, again, Nick, big thanks for that. The workshops, we had so much fun doing the faculty workshop that we did one for the staff as well, and then we did one for downtown businesses. We just completed that one. The whole marketing team went downtown to the chamber to put on 2 workshops and did pretty much the same thing, focused on social media and introduced the team so they could reach out to us for help on how do you use the Chiefs camp to bring foot traffic to your stores. That's what trips their trigger is increased revenue. And so we've taught them how to do those things. How do you use Griff Up to run special promotions, to get students in your stores, to get them to actually spend money, et cetera. It was very well attended, and we accomplished quite a bit there. We created a marketing homepage so we could publish our measurements. So what I just talked about with the faculty and their engagement, we now have our home webpage that introduces the team with access to our logos and our marks and kind of a cheat sheet on who you contact if you want to engage with the university for marketing support. And that's pretty cool. And also if you want to tune into the measurements that we created, it's right there. University Town, we're making progress with that, and that's probably my wheelhouse because I know lots of business folks downtown. And we've been making a lot of progress with that. The workshop with the chamber is an example of that. But I will tell you the feedback about what prevents us from being more of a university town. I'm going to save that for my last slide. I had a blast with the students. I was asked to do a guest lecture on branding and marketing, and what surprised me was I expected that to be a lot of blank stares, and it was not. The students not only got it, but they knew some of the products that I've been working on for the past like 5 years, and that was a big surprise. They were very engaging, and I had a ball. I went to the Marketing Wildlife Club. Those guys are rock stars, and I didn't even know it. They won national awards for the stuff that they do here, which prompted me to write an editorial that never got published. Marcus, you can take care of that, maybe. But it was about students come here to the Wildlife Club. They come to campus to leave the campus. What impressed me about the Wildlife Club is they come here and then they leave. They're out counting turtles. They're out counting fish. They're out trapping raccoons and counting birds. I mean, they are out in the field doing stuff every single week. And it's like, and they win awards for the presentations that they give on national level. That's one of those points of distinction that I started uncovering as I got more and more exposure to the faculty and the staff. And we've got a ton of them. We just haven't leveraged them well enough, in my opinion. So I love the students, had a ball. Fact-based decisions. I think the team got a little bit tired of hearing my favorite mantra of we're going to make fact-based decisions, not based on perception. Trustworthy behavior is a huge thing for me, and use common sense and good business judgment. I've said that for years and years and years, but you got to trust people that you're working with, and a lot of times, 90% of the time, they're going to make the right decisions. Just trust them to do that and give them the confidence to make decisions, and they did a lot of that. We mobilized, and it was quite something. We kicked the Bearcats on Griffin. I mean, we really blew it out of the park. If you guys weren't there, we're going to do it even better next year. But how do I play this video? It's a short one. So we'll try to beat that next year. But Josh, big thanks to you and your crew. Brett did a great job. We had the bell. We had the horseback rider that does the outfield. She was flying a Griffin flag. She had created a special T-shirt for it. We were throwing T-shirts out to the crowd. Alumni tent was there. Admissions had a tent there. I mean, we rocked the house, and it was a full house. Elizabeth did some damage to our student body president catcher who missed her fastball.
I didn't mean to throw it that hard.
It might have been a slider. He was expecting a fastball, but he took one on the chin for the team. I think we got footage of that. It was a lot of fun. It was a great night, but it was clearly, it was a Griffin night. And as opposed to the Bearcats, where you saw a smattering of green here and there, we decked that place out. People were flying the colors, and it was just cool to be a part of. So thank you for throwing out the first pitch and being there. So that was
great.
something. And those are the things that I look forward to more in the future, because I think there's been a disengagement by the university over the last 10 years. And I speak as a private citizen. I haven't been really involved in the university because usually I was, on a plane every single week. So I know enough to be dangerous, but I could feel a distance in the campus and the community over the last 10 years. And I think it just happens kind of like erosion, just gradually here and there, and a budget cut gets placed here and there. And pretty soon we don't do billboards anymore at the Mustangs outfield. And I mean, those things just kind of creep in, and there's so much opportunity to get re-engaged with the community because the community wants that. So anyway, I'll get off on a tangent. How about that? Good. 5 more minutes. Here's my last slide. So I leave you with this, and here's the big grain of salt. There are things that I noticed, and mostly from my background in consumer products, where we move fast, we make decisions quickly, and they're fact-based. I would say, and I heard a number of times, we just don't do that in higher education. I get it. Maybe we should, because we are competing with universities that are moving at the same clip that we are. They're just flip-flopping a little bit faster than we are. But I would tell you that if we can be fast and we can be nimble, we can outcompete them regardless of what the budgets are. And I've got a number of examples of stone walls that I ran up against. We had the most fun when we didn't ask permission. Like the workshop, we just did stuff. But when we had to kind of follow the rules and regulations, it gets so tangled up in committee meeting after committee meeting, and it drove me out of my mind. Kent can attest to that. But so sometimes we ask permission and play by the rules, and sometimes we just did stuff. But I will tell you that there is a great opportunity to outcompete any university around here by being fast and nimble. So anyway, enough of that. I think the faculty are very willing, because they saw the results of their activity, to engage as influencers. I think the attraction of blowing out the classroom and using social media to reach a broader audience is attractive to, and not all of them are comfortable doing that, is what I learned. But the ones that are, man, I'll tell you what, that is an army waiting to be unleashed, and it's a powerful. And anyway, I'll shut enough about that. 30-minute meetings. I was big on this at Hallmark Cards. It's a big place too, and we had way too many committee meetings and meetings to just have meetings. And so in my organization at Hallmark, I limited meetings to 30 minutes. So you better come prepared and you better speak a piece, but we're going to end in 30 minutes. And there are a lot of, I would just encourage you to adopt a policy where people are prepared for those meetings, you accomplish your objective, and get out, and limit who's there. Fewer committees, man, there are so many committees here. I know it's probably part of the animal, but boy, I'll tell you, search committee, you hire a search committee and then you have a search committee here. And then I know it's part of the process, but it's like, wow, everywhere you turn, there's a committee that has to approve something. Pretty soon there's no accountability for a decision because it's the committee made the choice. The committee did. That's an observation and maybe unfair. Again, I know enough to be dangerous. And this one's really going to torch some people. But there are more, again, this is coming from a private business perspective, but there are more titles in this place than I can keep track of. I mean, there are chairs and vice chairs and provosts, deans and vice deans, and I can't keep track of it. But I don't know if there's a way in private. I've gone through this and I've done the flattening of the organization thing, and it's painful. But I would say that we can be a lot faster with a lot fewer titles, and enough of that. Students as customers. That's probably my biggest hot button, is we should think of these students as customers, because they are. The rest of us we're all overhead. They're paying the bills, the salaries. And we have a lot of instances where we don't treat them as customers. And I'm speaking of faculty as well as staff. It's a great opportunity to extend customer service. Hy-Vee is a great example. I love when I go in there and find people who are knocking out of the park. If you are looking for something And my wife knows where every SKU is in the entire store, where every subcategory. When she sends me for something, it's frustrating because she's got it memorized. I do not. I walk in, I don't know where the mayonnaise is. You ask somebody at Hy-Vee, they won't tell you it's in aisle 9. They will take you there, the good ones will. And most of them are good ones. And so how many times does a student come on campus and say, I'm really interested in drama? You know, if it's an accounting professor, somebody, you take them to the professor that can talk to them, the faculty member who can care about them and talk about the program. I don't know, but that could be a whole initiative for do what Hy-Vee does. Take some examples from consumer products and apply those. That's customer service. And we have to be passionate about that. You can't fake that. And Hy-Vee, they may, I mean, I'm sure they're trained to do that, but you wouldn't know it. They're just thrilled to take you to aisle 9 where the mayonnaise is. And I appreciate that. Best practice onboarding. This is one of my favorites because, Ken, again, you'll have to back me up on this. When we would have an idea for anything, like a view book or a website, immediately we would all go find best practice. Go find who's knocking it out of the park, who has the best view book of any university out there. And we would find great examples. And the unintended consequence of that is we got to see how universities react when we showed any interest. So if we're Googling something and maybe it's Purdue, and suddenly Nick was on the front line of this because he was doing a whole lot of best practice research, Purdue would say, hey, we noticed you noticing this. What are you interested in? Blew us all away because there are a handful of universities that have highly interactive, very tailored and targeted response mechanisms so that if you show the slightest interest, they're on it in a nice way, in a very polite way. So I know Melissa is working on a view book that does that, and it is going to be a powerful machine because I know Northwest doesn't do that. I would say taking that a step further to that whole onboarding process, the really good ones make that easy. I mean, you make a phone call, you send you are enrolled without a whole lot of red tape that we'll figure out on the backside. I appreciate that about some of the things that we found. University Town, I think, has huge potential, huge. And as I've told the cabinet and other community leaders, we have something just below the surface that if you're involved in stuff in St. Joe, you recognize we've got some new emerging leaders coming up that are going to be crafting a very dynamic future in St. Joe. And Elizabeth is one of those. We're going to have a new CEO in the chamber here real soon. You've got a great city manager in Brian Carter. I'm just telling you, you've got some new energy and some fast, nimble people who want to see things happen. And I think the timing is perfect to reconnect the university with the town. And there are going to be a lot of opportunities to do that. But I would just say, stay tuned. I think there's a lot of potential there. Sense of urgency. I did a craziest year of my life. I was at NASCAR for consulting gig for about a year. And I have a million stories from that experience. But one of my favorite takeaways from there was a phrase that the drivers would say before they jump in the car, and it's drive it like you stole it, which means put the pedal to the floor and just drive flat out fast as you can. I love that expression because it means something. It means be a little reckless sometimes, take a few risks sometimes, but drive it like you stole it, like you mean it, like you're going somewhere. And I would say the sense of urgency behind that statement is something that I'd love to see more of. There are flashes, and I'm talking about even faculty who go above and beyond, who know they're personally involved in like the wildlife club. They're taking them out on field trips. They're doing that kind of stuff. Those are the guys putting the pedal to the floor. Anyway, points of distinction. I'll go back to this and close in just a second, but I'm still on the hunt for points of distinction. We have a long list. The faculty helped put a lot of that stuff together, and you'll see that in our web page, because there are things that we do that I think we just take for granted, and we don't market those points of distinction well enough. What keeps me up at night, and probably you too, is if you put all the universities on a spreadsheet within a 200-mile radius, all the programs they offer, the majors they deliver, there's a sameness that is scary. And that's that commodity piece that I was talking about. unless you have points of distinction, and I'm talking about not marketing every program, and I know that's an adjustment for the faculty because they all think their programs are special, and they are, but we've got to stand for something. You can't market everything. And so you need to narrow down the points of distinction for majors that you offer or schools that you market. And one of those, Craig School of Business, that is a brand that means something. That means Division I, like a Kelly School of Business for Indiana. It gives you a D1 status because you've got two brands that are collaborating, and that's a cool thing. That's a step up. So I would say anytime we can do that with a nursing program or whatever, our top 5, I've got my pets, but I don't even verbalize that because I know enough to be dangerous. And I would say the last thing is elevate marketing as a major discipline with budget to support it. Now, it's really hard to tell how much budget money you're competing against because everybody likes to hide that number. And I tried, man, I really tried to get at what is Northwest doing if we have billboards on every street corner here to Kansas City. I do know in the realm of fact-based statements, while I don't know what their marketing budget is, I do know how much those billboards cost, and they've got them everywhere. I will tell you that their budget for billboards is probably bigger than our entire marketing budget. And granted, billboards are still probably mean something in Northwest Missouri, but I'm not a fan of billboards. I won't get into that, but they're everywhere. And I would just tell you that the budget they spend, the budget they have for billboards and for marketing puts us at a huge competitive disadvantage. I know you guys know that, but I'm telling you, the only thing that makes you different from a Northwest Missouri state is the marketing that you put behind it. And that takes resources. And we got pretty clever on a lot of those things, like the Mustangs game. There was not a huge expense. We gave away $1,000 scholarship. This was brilliant. I don't know who came up with this idea, but I love this. We gave away $1,000 scholarship, and we got a shout out at every single game, including the Bearcat night, where the kids tried to outcompete. Are you smarter than a Mustangs manager? And they were real simple questions. It was cute. It was clever. And so at the very last game, we gave away a $1,000 scholarship to a 10-year-old drawing out of a hat. I mean, it was fun marketing because we got to plug every single game for $1,000 scholarship that may or may not be cashed in, in 10 years. But that's the kind of stuff that we really had a lot of fun putting together. And I've got another month before I leave you, and I will put all of this stuff. I didn't have anything as a handout. I'm sorry for that, but I'll put all this stuff. I've got reams of information, but I'll put that together and circulate it to you so you can kind of get my thoughts on marketing and everything else. There you go.
Any questions?
I have a question. What percent of our tuition revenue are we spending on marketing? It's $33 million. So what percent of that would you say we're spending on marketing, or can you tell?
I will refer to the marketing guy. That's one of those things, or to the finance guy in the back. He knows the numbers probably better than me on that. It's minuscule. And that's one of those areas where the business side of me wants to say, I know the application of 3-4% is what it should be or higher. And I guarantee you it's not there. That's one of those apples to oranges that may not apply, but on the other hand, my fondest wish is that we would apply something like that because we don't have a lot of funding. And again, that's one of those things where probably over the course of years and previous administrations, it just gets whittled away or funneled out to athletics. Josh, I can blame you for, you're a lame duck. So athletics probably grabbed a lot of that budget at some point. But I think, and that's what makes it so hard to determine what a university is really spending on marketing, because there are a lot of buckets out there. I think maybe we just let it erode over the years and farmed it out to other places. So that's not a good answer to your question, but
It's a question we should know the answer to.
yeah, I agree.
Any other questions?
Greg, do you have any other, are there work sessions or anything that maybe if the board would be so inclined to maybe kind of see some of these things when you're having your brainstorming or maybe some of our ideas we might you could tell us how
Yeah, I would love
how
that.
poor they are, or
No. Yeah, it would be great. I will tell you that I did hit this point, but the businesses downtown are very eager to work with us. But we make it really, really hard to do that. And I'll tell you, I ran into a buzzsaw with branding. I'm not going to beat the dead horse, Kelly. I'm sorry. Well, I might just make one. I know. We make it hard because we want to protect that brand. So we have contracts in place to protect that brand. And in order to work with us and use our logos, even if you want to create a cupcake, it's impossible, almost impossible. If you want to create a Golden Griffin ale with River Bluff, there's a stack of contracts that you have to wade through. And everybody throws up their hand and says, I can't afford $1,000 a month to work with you as a brand. And I'm taking all the risks, to try to generate revenue. In my world, I'd say, don't want a dime for a year. Let's see if you're taking all the risks, and let's see if there's an audience for it. Develop the beer, and it becomes something everybody gravitates to as alumni at River Bluff or homecoming. Then boom, you've got a revenue sharing opportunity, and then you negotiate on, what makes sense.
Yeah. Well, I think we have to be a little careful because you did mention one thing. A lot of this was 10-year-old work that hadn't been done. We haven't had a director or chief communications officer in over a year and a half. A lot of these contracts were entered into years ago, and we do have to be careful and protect the university. So I think there's lots of good ideas, and where we are now are trying to find ways to renegotiate, to reopen contracts, to get those going. So I don't think it's a lack of creativity per se. It is bureaucratic buildup, if you will, debris that's occurred over the last 10 years that we are definitely working on, which is why we're making some of the critical hires we are, like a general counsel, like a chief communications officer, to really position us so that we do know answers to questions like what are we spending our marketing on and where are we putting our creative efforts. I mean, I can tell you when I first arrived, it was a pretty invisible campus once you crossed Mitchell or on the other side of I-29. So I think we're making good strides. We appreciate your work, Greg, on that greatly.
You are. I should have prefaced that with, there's a lot of stuff left over, held over that you inherited, but and yeah, you're making great progress. So.
I think it's the right thing. I mean, we don't have to take 100% of what you're putting out there. If we take 70, 50, we take 10% of what you're proposing. I mean, those are things that move the ball forward for us. I appreciate the energy you bring. I mean, from other things that projects I have seen you work on or been with you on. I mean, this is a 3 o'clock cup of coffee with a Snickers stuck in it is when you're presenting it. I mean, it gets the blood flowing, and we don't have to agree on 100%, but there's a lot of stuff on there that, that is what you're bringing to the table. And we start figuring out what we can do, what we can't do. And
Right. And to the point, we hadn't had any of those conversations for faculty, for staff, for administrators, no connection with the downtown folks or the chamber and doing those things. So that you're exactly right. That's
right. No, you
exactly
started
what
the
we
process. I mean, you came and said, we've got a guy, and I know the guy that you're coming to have, do this consulting, and this is what we need to figure out what we can do.
I would also tell you that one of the most visible changes in the last 7 months is the visibility of not just Elizabeth, but other faculty members out in the community actually doing things. And that is a marked difference in what I've seen in the last couple of years. I mean, the STEAM event behind City Hall, that's all Mike.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be building a boat there for him because he asked me to. So come down and relieve me or spin your own sand. But it's those kinds of things that make the university more visible, more personal, more real. And I would say the perception before this latest 7 months has been, there's an arm's length, there's a distance, and a lot of it, it's all history. I mean, it just kind of, it's withered just a little bit over the last 10 years, but I see a huge difference just in the last 7 months. Anyway, but great qualifier. I should follow that up.
Governor Landis.
Greg, your comment there about fewer committees and way fewer committee meetings. If you'll notice down here, we're going to have a Board of Governors committee reports. But when I got on this board over 2 years ago, there were no committees whatsoever. And but I'm going to make you feel good. We're only going to have 4 committee meetings out of the year. Okay. So you know.
Point made. Yeah, that's good. That comes from my Hallmark Hallmark back.
I
then as well.
understand
Because
totally.
those guys, man, a lot of committee meetings, a lot of meetings.
And I agree with that, by the way, what
And-
you're talking about.
Well, and
Any other questions? Well, Greg, I got a couple comments and I certainly appreciate your work here and your presentation. It rather eye-opening in some areas. I think many areas we kind of knew about, but hadn't had the opportunity or the gumption to react to them. But to me, the number one thing you've told us is the students are our customers. And we kind of lose track of that in doing our daily business and our monthly board meetings and things and trying to balance the books and get the classes and all of that. But carry over from the private sector that Governor Landis and I were in, the customers are, you don't exist without them. So I appreciate you making that point. The second thing to me that was most important that you've presented on this slide is St. Joe needs to be the university town, this university town, not the one up the highway north. And over time, in the past few years, months, weeks, as you drive around, talk to people, see people, it's kind of green. And, Maryville should be that university town, and it is. And St. Joe should be this university's town. And for us to sit and wait for the town to do that is going to result in the same results. So I agree wholeheartedly, and hopefully we move on that. And you mentioned the wildlife and biology department. They're out there counting turtles and looking at tadpoles and stuff. I just got to throw this in. A year ago, they went out there and planted 750 trees along that area. And you're right, they get a lot of awards, and they do a lot of great things, and it's virtually unnoticed. So I'm glad you recognize that.
Yeah.
So anyway, thank you so much. Keep up the good work. Okay, now we have our special presentation by Vice President Darrell Morrison about finance and administration.
Good afternoon, everyone. Would you like to stand a moment? Anybody-
Are you asking
I
for
don't
an
mind.
applause or?
No, I'm just thankful to be standing up for a moment. I mean, it's,
He's the last one. You could take a break right after this. That'd be, yeah.
you know who the short-term employees are on the campus, right? When you say stand up and one of them immediately darts the refreshment. Be Dr. Looney. Good afternoon. I am going to continue with the report. I appreciate Greg and the things he shared with the campus. As a finance person, I can't, we need more money. We need this sort of thing. And when we start making comparisons, so I always have a comeback. Okay, here's my comeback. The mandatory tuition and fee per credit hour up the road is $368.86. It is $258.32 on this campus. If I had an extra $110.54 for every credit hour produced, we could do a lot of things.
Why don't you?
Because the state will not allow it. And because of past decisions that have been made that I don't want to get into at this point in time. But that's part of the problem, and that's the thing. The answer to your question, Governor Norton earlier, was also of the tuition fee number. It's roughly around 3%. That's extremely low. I think
You're
we'd all.
trying to grow, I think. If you're trying to grow. which
If
we
you're
are,
trying to grow,
you can't.
we are.
That's not a-
We are, right. So, my office and my group, extremely busy this time of year. We are on the financial side of things, just a report on my area quickly. We are in the process of closing fiscal year 21. We have been working extremely hard in the last several weeks with students, both in financial aid and the business office, student accounts office, along with Dr. Mays and many of her group, and across the campus. The academic folks have jumped in and helped us contact students and help them with their financial arrangements and get those things taken care of. Physical plants, police department, they have been, as Dr. Ludi alluded to earlier, extremely busy with Chief Camp. A lot of overtime. We've got projects everywhere. We're trying to get finished up at the start of the semester. And it's just been can to can't, if you will, on some of those things. But I'm extremely proud of them and what they're doing. And now we're preparing for the fall semester in all of these areas. Our tech services area, again, preparing for the fall semester. We've got some new implemented things that we're going to be rolling out. New parking system, working on a new ID system. We have contracted for an interim director, a CIO candidate, David Henson. David's doing some good work in leading that group, assessing some situations and moving us forward. Human resources, we haven't had a good onboarding and or offboarding process on this campus. Both are being enhanced. This has been going on for some time, and we'll be rolling that out. I know for the new faculty that will be coming in, I know Dr. Hepworth has worked with HR and some of that group. And so we're looking forward to those things. We're also continuing a compensation study across campus to find out where we have some discrepancies in our pay structure and really to build that. So, and one other personnel announcement that we have hired a director of risk management and environmental and institutional safety, a gentleman by the name of Mark White. He'll be able to do a lot of things that we were contracting out. We rolled some positions together and made that, so he's on board now as well. One of the things that I want to do is I move into any questions on that from anyone? I'm talking as fast as I can, I promise, okay? I stand up here time after time in front of this group and in committee meetings and across this campus. But anyone that works on this campus really knows who runs my office. And she's back there in the back, and I'm gonna ask her to stand up, Dana. She keeps me straight. And if you don't believe me, ask Steve Johnson. He will tell you. She tells me where to go. That's in a positive way, most days. And when to get there and all those things. And I appreciate her work so much. She assists not only my office, but all the offices within my area. So I just want to recognize her. The Board of Governors, Personnel, Finance, and Operations Committee, chaired by Governor Landis. We met 1 week ago at 11 a.m. in this very room and had a discussion on some items. I'm not all those documents from that report are in your board book. I'm not going through all of those, but I did put together just a couple of slides for you to review to hopefully kind of give us a picture of some things and to show you kind of where we've come from as a campus as we wind down fiscal year 21. I have made a comparison here in a bar graph to show the original budget. That's not the revised budget. That's the budget we started fiscal year 21 with. That's July 1st of 20. Okay. That's where our original budget work was. The orange there represents the actual numbers. Now we're still adjusting and doing things as we close the fiscal year, but you can see some of the shifts and changes. The fact that the state gave us additional money last year helped our appropriation numbers, almost $2 million, right? And additional resources there that we received from them Now, true, it was designated, but it did help our bottom line. It's designated for a specific purpose. And then the grants and contracts number, that's a lot of the federal and state funds that we receive, okay, on this. Salaries and compensation, we were below what we had originally budgeted on some of those. Throughout the year, our scholarships were just about right. You see our capital expenditures were higher than that, and that's strictly a correlation between that and those federal and state dollars that we receive. And so that's why those expenditures are. So how did we do? Again, these are the unaudited number. We're still working on them. But our revenues were higher, our expenses were higher, okay? But what we need to understand is we started the year $3.9 million in the hole in fiscal year 20. We wound up around a mid-1.2 to the positive for the year, okay, is where we're going to wind up on some of those things. That's a massive swing, and it shows the dedication and the tough decisions and the ability to work together as a campus community across all areas to be successful. We're doing that. This proves it, okay? So that's a good number, okay? One of the things that we talked about at the finance committee, and I wanted to break down just for you a little bit, to kind of pull out some of those federal resources and stuff, and let's talk about just the operating piece of the university budget, not it in its totality, but just the education, what is termed as the educational and general funds, and the auxiliary funds, housing, food service, those type of things. As we look at that, of course, we did not meet, I've got a comparison to fiscal year 20 and to fiscal year 21, our current year, just side by side. And you can see those numbers growing across and how we fared on our revenues. And we see the decrease in state in tuition and fee, and then an increase in our state appropriations, okay? And as we look at this on our operating expenses, you see the reduction in salaries and compensation that we experienced this year, okay? So that's one thing that has attributed, is that right sizing that higher ed has a little difficulty from time to time doing, but that's what that shows us. There are utility numbers, scholarships, some of those things right on line. We did have a slight increase in our debt service payments. So we're looking at that. So how does that rate? Well, basically what you see is revenues and expenses and an increase and decrease. And this is just the operating piece. And we were somewhere around 1.4. We're expecting just in our operating 3.4. That's positive again. So these are good numbers, okay? These are a lot better numbers than we were looking at 2 years ago for those of you that were sitting around this table, okay? So there's been some good things going on. Our cash position, again, at June 30, a year-end snapshot, we're up 2.6 from last year and really up, 6 or so from 2 years ago, okay? So financial update, and then just for your note, and all this information in our cash position is strong again at the end of July. Okay. Any questions on any of those slides? Okay. Just a quick update. This again is on the slide presentation from the board. We've talked about CARES Act numerous times, what we're doing with those funds. I do want to talk about the third round that we're currently involved in. Institutional, we've already obligated a couple of things for the Baker Fitness Center in Remington Agostine in order to fix some of the air conditioning issues and heating issues in those buildings. We'll be doing a request across campus for other things. We will be, as we touched on, and as was reported in the news press locally from our last meeting, right? We will be dispersing $5.8 million over the next fiscal year directly to our students. And we're expecting to do that sometime in late September. A quick update on our benefits for you. Our health insurance for the university is going up 13% this next year. Okay, it's a total of $430,000. The plan is to absorb it into our budget and not pass any of those costs on to our employees. Our employees, that many of them have not had adjustments or raises in 3 to 4 to 5 years, some. And so therefore, we're trying to hold the line on that. There's no changes to any of the plan coverages associated with Blue Cross and Blue Shield or with our Delta dental, our vision, or our life insurance plans. We do have a slight increase if we're getting a new provider for our employee assistance program. And then, of course, Mosier's continues to go up, the retirement plan for many of our staff on campus. And you can see those numbers associated with each one of those. Okay. Any questions or comments? That pretty much concluded the my report for the committee from 1 week ago.
Governor Landis.
Well, as chair of the committee and my two colleagues that were on the committee, Governor Woolman and Governor Norton, you heard me say earlier when I first got on here, there was no committees. I want to comment on our committee meeting. And in my opinion, it was a good one because it was our first really full-blown committee meeting. And it gave us the opportunity to sit and talk a lot about a whole variety of things. And as Daryl talked about the financial side and everything else, it finally come down to us to approve certain things as a committee, like the financial report for fiscal year 2020-21, the financial report for fiscal year 2021 and 20, and then an extension of the contract with Blue Cross Blue Shield, as you show there. But in discussing, a lot of different things, we are trending in the right direction. We still got a ways to go. And when you start with the first committee, we're kind of crawling before we walk, but we're going to progress as a committee better because we're getting to know each other. We know the questions to ask and all of that other stuff. And so we are going to be requesting a motion for approval of the committee report. Before I do that, I'd like to ask Governor Woolman if you got anything to add over what we did or any comments, rather than me just sitting here mouthing around. The answer is no, that's fine.
Well, the only comment I have is, I think for the efficiency of these governor board meetings, that we can help expedite the time that we.
Right.
And we can let Daryl more concentrate on some of the high points that he feels are essential to be communicated to the people in this room. And that's where I find the value of that committee as we're functioning.
Governor Norton. I'm going to remember that.
Don't be hard on me.
No, you're good. So back to the point, we would be requesting, a motion for approval of our committee report.
So you're requesting that?
That's what it says right in here.
Yes, it does. So Governor Landis is asking for a motion to approve the Personnel, Finance, and Operations Committee report.
So moved.
Second,
Probably needs to come from the committee.
I'll second it.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passed. I think perhaps at this time we should maybe take a 10-minute break, stretch our legs.
Sounds great.
We'll resume in 10 minutes.
Connie said she got to visit with you last night.
Yeah, it was nice. She represented your.
Let me see if I missed
She does a good job of that.
Okay.
Hi.
I say similar things all the time.
we do.
So Kayla's is.
Much more happy.
This is good.
Yeah.
So I said, buy this stuff. She was, I recommend.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
It is now.
I just. We'll find out, I guess. That's for the room.
We'll reconvene the Board of Directors meeting now, and I'm going to turn the floor over to Kayla Schoonover for her committee report.
Okay, this is a report of the Academic and Student Engagement Committee, and we met on August 16th to discuss the university's Master Academic Plan as presented to us by Interim Provost Dr. Mark Manganero. And on behalf of the entire committee, I would like to thank all the members of the MAP team who worked so diligently and thoughtfully to create this academic plan for Missouri Western. And I especially want to thank Dr. Elise Hepworth, Interim Vice Provost, for spearheading the MAP team and for reaching across so many constituency groups across our campus community to ensure many voices were heard and part of this process. I'd also like to thank Dr. Manganero for providing oversight as the plan entered its final phase and assisting in shaping it in the form now shared with us today. And as outlined in the earlier presentation by Dr. Hepworth, the Master Academic Plan will serve as the blueprint for strategic endeavors within the Division of Academic Affairs over the next 5 years. As such, by direction of the Academic and Student Engagement Committee, I recommend that Missouri Western State University Master Academic Plan be formally adopted by the Board of Governors.
Thank you, Kayla. Coming from the committee, this recommendation does not require a second. Is there any discussion by the board on the recommendation to adopt the Missouri Western State University Master Academic Plan? With that, I call for a vote on the recommendation. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Nay, any absences? The motion carried. The recommendation to adopt is approved. Thank you, Vice Chair Schoonover. This time I turn the time over to Lee Teeman to give the report of the Policies and Bylaws Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Our committee of the Policies and Bylaws met last week. And referring back to some of the earlier speakers that we've had today about various committees we have here and what things go through, that is a project that we are looking at. And we have from our general counsel, Kelly Douglas, has prepared a draft that we are reviewing internally on our committee and with comments. Our policy on policies that kind of sets the framework where everything goes from there. Our intent is that at our next committee meeting, which will be before our next board meeting, that we will have a final draft to present to this board for the board to review and comment, with the hope that by our December board meeting that we can have a final version to present to this board for hopefully approval.
Very good. At this time, we'll have a report by the student governor, Hannah Berry. Hannah?
In lieu of a written report, I just have brief remarks to any Griffins that may be watching. That there's been a lot of hard work this summer by faculty and staff and administration to prepare for the welcoming of students back on campus. And I hope that other students are just as excited as I am to kick off the academic year. And I would just leave the remark that my email and my office door is always open to any students who may like the ear of the board with any ideas or any concerns.
Okay, thank you. Now we'll have the report of the president, Dr. Elizabeth Kennedy.
Thank you, Chair Ebersold and Vice Chair Schoonover, governors. I just also want to add my welcome. This is the first meeting of the Board of Governors since the arrival of our new interim senior executive director, Jean, and it has been a pleasure getting to know Jean a bit more and beginning our work together. And by all accounts, she has stepped up and dug right into her work with her team. So I look forward to working more with Jean. Also, it's less than 2 weeks before the start of the semester, and we are preparing eagerly to kick it off. Details for Plan Week, which runs August 23rd through the 27th, are nearly finalized. We'll begin with a campus-wide welcome that Monday morning and continue our preparations throughout the week. I know we've heard tales of the Griff up downtown. I do want to remind governors that this event will be on the 26th. We are opening the event this year to all Missouri Western students, and we have over 20 downtown business partners who are excited and engaged along with our student organizations. We're going to have outdoor activities, a DJ's giveaway, the traditional Griffin hunt. So if you are free on the 26th, I suggest you head downtown because that will be the place to be. It will be hopping. We will officially also that week welcome the class of 2025. That class has been assigned the Missouri Western Value of Quality. We'll do that in a convocation ceremony on Sunday, August 29th, which we will hold in Spratt Stadium. Now, despite all of our enthusiasm and excitement about the upcoming semester, I would be remiss if considerations of the status of COVID-19 in our region were not part of this conversation. So to that piece, our COVID-19 response team has been and continues to diligently monitor the COVID-19 situation in our area and region and to sift through the scientific reports and data as each pertains to our campus. I cannot emphasize enough how important the work of this group is, particularly led by our coordinator, Dr. Harris, and Drs. Michael Grantham and Gary Clapp. How important the work of this group is, and I want to be sure to publicly acknowledge their efforts. As you are aware, we are shifting back to a mandatory mask policy for indoor public spaces on our campus, which will go into effect on August 23rd. Messaging has gone out to our entire campus community earlier this week, and we continue to post details on our COVID-19 webpage. Note that our intent is to revisit the masking mandate every 2 weeks as we monitor cases in our area and positivity rates. As part of this monitoring process, I continue to participate in the St. Joseph Community COVID-19 weekly roundtable conference calls, as well as in the Missouri Department of Higher Education and Workforce Development's weekly COVID-19 conference call. Equally important, I believe, is our continued efforts to promote reliable sources of vaccine information to our campus community and to encourage vaccination for those able to do so. Governor Barry, you asked about the Chiefs Camp-based vaccination clinic. I want to offer my gratitude to Mosaic and the Kansas City Chiefs who helped coordinate this for us. We held it on August 12th, which is a Thursday immediately following camp. We had 120 individuals sign up and about 71 actually come in to get vaccinated. So we were very happy to have that. I also would like to offer a heartfelt thank you to our faculty, our staff, and our students who volunteered their time at the clinic to make this happen. It was a great event. I too want to remind everyone that our free on-campus COVID-19 testing for students and employees is offered on Tuesdays and Thursdays through our Esri Health Center. And again, more information is available on our COVID website. Believing that a carrot might be more effective than a stick at this particular point in time, we have also rolled out our Max the Vax incentive program for students and employees who are or become fully vaccinated. As of this morning, we have already had 436 students sign up and 192 employees. Our first prize drawing for employees will be held on Friday, August 27th. We are giving away 4 reserved parking spots at a value of $200 each. Our first student prize drawing will be held on Friday, September 3rd. We are giving away 5 $100 Barnes & Noble gift certificates. We have grand prize drawings that will be held on Friday, October 8th, $2,500 for one student and for one employee, and on Friday, October 15th, which is $5,000 for one student and one employee. Importantly, and let me emphasize this for all, the university is able to use our ARPA funding for this to offset the cost of the program. Please hear that the clear message is this: we want to stay open, to stay safe, and to provide the collegiate experience in and out of the classroom that we have all been so desperately wanting back. Given the prevalence of the COVID Delta variant in our area, its targeting of a younger population, and its ease of transmission. Our ability to return to normal on campus this fall must include consideration of local cases and positivity rates as we review, adjust, and implement our mitigation protocols and practices. With that as a backdrop, let me provide you the following updates. As of this writing, our fall enrollment reflects a number of realities that we have had to deal with, which began well over a year and a half ago. While our overall enrollment figures are trending down, we must remember that our freshman 2020 class was down significantly. Our fall 2021 recruitment efforts were not in full force until mid-November of 2020, when Dr. Mace joined us. Missouri Western had engaged in modest retention efforts in the past years, and our market presence, as we heard earlier, in terms of recruitment efforts were minimal. Factors such as these, combined with the lingering impact of the pandemic, as well as some minor fallout related to program restructuring, have had a negative impact on enrollment thus far. Clearly, we have work ahead of this, and we are doing just that. For example, we've heard about our walk-in registration date scheduled for next week. If you came in off of Mitchell and/or Woodbine, hopefully you saw our banner. That looks great. And as was mentioned earlier, last year's walk-in registration date was very successful. We had over 70 students arrive. In fact, looking at the trends for our enrollment, our biggest months for student enrollment are March and August. So we're here and we're ready. Okay. As Vice President Mace also mentioned, our transfer students are up both from 2-year and 4-year institutions. And I think the fact that we are seeing new freshman counts up from Buchanan County is also evidence that we're heading in the right direction. I love the fact that our students from Central High School and Lafayette High Schools are also trending up. I see that as a very positive. Let me also provide you some other updates. Status of the Provost search. Drs. Richtemeyer and Hunter of Academic Search indicate that the search for a permanent provost and vice president of academic affairs is moving forward as projected. I know the position description and prospectus have been finalized and the position has been posted and advertising is underway. The search committee will begin its work in late August, early September, and I will provide more details as they become available. I can also report to you on the status of the athletics director search. As I shared with you on Friday, August 6th, Teresa Grossbach has agreed to step in as the interim director position. And I am grateful, very grateful that Teresa is willing to serve the university in this role. We have contracted with Double L Consulting and I'm working with Jill Wilson. The search committee is nearly finalized. The position will be posted today and the timeline for the search completion is being worked out. We are very pleased and hopeful and believe that it will be a short search with an aggressive timeline and hope to have an offer by the end of October. Let me add a few words too about the Kansas City Chiefs training camp. Through the excellent stewardship of Dr. Looney and his team and the superhuman efforts of so many of our Missouri Western staff, particularly our physical plant, our campus police, without whom it would simply have been impossible to host the 2021 Chiefs training camp. It rolled out very well. I also would like to thank yet again members of my team, particularly Steve Johnson, alongside with Betsy Wright and Dana Gertner, who worked so hard to make our Missouri Western VIP tent event so successful. Our elected official appreciation day, although by far the hottest day of the camp, was a smashing success. It was incredibly well attended and provided me the opportunity to thank all of those folks who have supported the university so strongly and in particular who helped us secure the Chiefs coming to Missouri Western. Our board appreciation day was also a great hit. Thanks again to university and foundation staff for their assistance. You know, an event such as Chiefs Training Camp doesn't just happen on campus. It's only through everyone's combined and ongoing efforts that things come together. My use of the word superhuman was deliberate. And although the attendance numbers might be somewhat smaller projected goals, we will remain hopeful for final numbers. Now, that said, the fan experience was widely applauded. The use of the electronic ticketing system implemented this year was brand new. However, operations have gone very smoothly and the fans reported enjoying easy entrance and exiting. I think that went very well. Let me also provide you with some updates about some university initiatives. As we have so approved by the board, the Master Academic Plan is now in place. I personally would like to offer my congratulations to Dr. Hepworth and her MAP team and to Dr. Manganero for a job very well done. You have my gratitude for your efforts. Let's also talk about Gold Fridays. This is an initiative that we are putting into full force this semester as we hope to be back to more normal activities. I'm pleased to report that the liftoff for the fall semester Gold Fridays activities is ready. To date, we have over 75 activities for our students to engage in with our faculty. We have 12 Fridays that have been scheduled. These will begin September 10th and they will run through December 3rd. We also have professional development opportunities for faculty and staff, and these will be in conjunction with our Center for Teaching and Learning and/or our Griffin Office of Applied Learning. I'm also pleased to report that our Center for Service will be holding an inaugural day of service on Friday, September 10th. We're calling this Griff's Give Back. This will be a day in which our community partners will serve as host locations for our day of service. Both the county and the city of St. Joseph, who provide financial support to our Center for Service, will have opportunities for our students to come out and assist in whatever projects they may have. Our Griff's Give Back Day of Service gives us an opportunity to provide tangible gratitude, if you will, for their efforts and for their support. I'd also like to update you on some new partnerships. We continue our dialogue with North Central Missouri College, and that dialogue continues to be fruitful. We are currently working on a dual enrollment agreement in which North Central students would also be enrolled as Missouri Western State University students. Those students would be able to live on our campus, participate in our campus events, and enroll in our courses while completing their degrees at North Central. The timeline for us to hammer out the agreement is by late October, which would allow us to finalize the details, all of those nuts and bolts about how somebody applies, how they get admitted, but also allow us to begin marketing this partnership in November and December so that we can begin our recruitment efforts for the fall 2022 semester in January. I am very excited about this and I'm very pleased with the work thus far. And I feel comfortable saying that Dr. Claver from North Central is as well. This is a great partnership. Finally, let me just mention some community engagement and relations activities. As always, I continue my efforts to infuse Missouri Western into our community, to engage, to re-engage, to repair, build, to seek out opportunities to connect with a host of individuals in order to promote the university in every way possible. We were very happy to host Senator Roy Blunt and his family for some conversation following their visit to the Chiefs camp this past Sunday. I was also very pleased to be able to connect with Governor Parson during his visit to St. Joe and the Pony Express Museum on Wednesday. I have been asked to serve on the 2040 implementation support team headed by Lowell Cruz, which is to drive the Imagine St. Joseph 2040 plan forward. And I'm very eager to participate in this effort. I'm also serving on the Main Street Organization Committee. This committee is part of the Main Street Connection and the Main Street America. It is essentially centered around building a strong governance structure, building trust within the community, recruiting volunteers, and fundraising. And this seems to have great promise for our community. I also continue to represent Missouri Western in our participation as part of KQ2's Project Safe Family Team, which provides resources to families in order to create a safe and thriving St. Joseph community. We recently filmed a new commercial. I believe it's airing now, but they did it right outside in front of our Griffin statue, and it's a beautiful shot of the campus. And I was able to participate in one of their tabling at a party on the Parkway events, which was great fun. I'm very pleased to be part of that. Finally, just to note, we've talked about our financial situation, but I would like to say that the financial challenges which have presented themselves to Missouri Western have, to a large extent, been mitigated by the very good work of Vice President Morrison and his team and their extraordinary efforts in this regard and their work with our entire campus community. I continue to applaud his efforts and those of his team for their dedicated service to the institution. Along with the support of so many of our donors and our community, I am also incredibly grateful for the combined efforts of our local elected officials, and they have solidly supported Missouri Western over the past many months. At every level, Missouri Western State University has benefited from the unwavering commitment to our university. We have been able to direct improvements to our campus that would not have been possible without the support and vision of our city, county, and state elected officials. And I am both humbled and grateful for their support. In summary, as we enter the fall 2021 semester, world circumstances continue to shake our visions of what the future might hold. Regardless of the uncertainty facing us, Missouri Western is well positioned to contribute to the economic vitality and growth in our region. We are engaging in necessary collaborations and partnerships, which I am confident will serve as the catalyst for development in these arenas. And as I routinely report, Missouri Western State University is moving forward with clear direction and sure purpose, and I am thrilled to be part of this momentum. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Kennedy. Is there any questions? I've got a couple comments. I, as well as the rest of the board, I'm sure, appreciate your involvement and the participation in the community events, especially with the North Central collaboration, which I think is an excellent alliance. And by all appearances, the Chiefs Camp was a success, and a special thanks to everybody that was involved in that to make it work, as you had pointed out. I attended all three of the committee meetings that we heard from a while ago, and I must say that it was great work. And is a new effort to welcome the incoming freshman classes this year by implementing a program of tree planting. It's going to be the freshman class of 2025. We're planting 2 trees, which are being donated by Moffett Nursery, and the maintenance staff here on campus is going to handle the planting or assist with the planting with the students. And the plan is to plant a tree or a pair of trees each year as a way of infusing the freshman class into an ownership of the campus, and ultimately, hopefully, that will increase the chances of retention and graduation. So I'm looking forward to that. It's going to be at 3:30, Friday, the 27th, be a week from this Friday. And with that, is there any other business that needs to be brought before the board? The next scheduled board meeting will be Thursday, October the 28th, 2021 at 1:30. I believe we're back into our regular location at Bloom, 220, correct?
Yep.
A vote will be held to close the meeting pursuant to Missouri statutes 610.021, sections 1, 2, 3, and 14 to consider legal matters, real estate, personnel, and other matters protected by law. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Motion is carried. We're moving to a closed session.
I like it, looking out on everybody. We're live. We're live. We're live.
We're back to regular session, and I'd like to turn it back to Eliz or Dr. Kennedy.
You make a motion to adjourn? Governor?
We need to approve.
Yes. You have to make a motion to approve the personnel?
We do need a motion
Yeah.
to approve the personnel recommendations as presented in closed session.
So moved. Second.
Third.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The motion carried, and we are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Okay.